Welcome to the Illuminated Path podcast. I'm your host, Liv, founder of Eno Wellness Collective. My wellness journey started with yoga, which led me down the path of exploring healing modalities like meditation, breath work, sound healing, mindset work, and so much more. This exploration inspired my mission to help others find what lights them up. Get comfortable and curious as we learn from experts, teachers, and creators who are lighting up their communities and living an inspired, expansive life. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of the Illuminated Path podcast. I'm Liv, your host, and I'm so excited to share today's episode. I've alluded to it in our previous episodes, but one of the main things I wanted to do as I started and launched the podcast was to bring on people who have not only inspired me, but have actually taught me. And so our guest today is Natalie Valle, and I'm excited to share more about her journey and what she does and how she's also influenced my own journey. So I got connected to Natalie a few years ago when I decided to go through a sound healing training with her. I had my crystal bowls that I had ordered and I had them here, but I really wanted to dive deeper and learn more about how to use them, about sound healing. And she was such an amazing teacher for me at that time and also continues to be that. So a little bit about Natalie. She is a multidisciplinary practitioner based in Los Angeles, and she wears a lot of different hats in the work that she does. So she's a signed Nike Mindfulness Coach, and she also has certifications in Soundology. She's a Reiki Master. She's a Chopra Institute wellness coach and meditation teacher. She's done Dharma Coaching, yoga teacher training, and EFT. And her work has been featured in some amazing places like the LA Times, Well and Good, and Business Insider. And she's also headlined great yoga festivals that I personally really love and have attended. She's headlined Wanderlust as well as Bhakti Fest. So in our conversation today, we get to dive into Natalie's journey, how she found sound, or rather how sound found her. She shares a lot about what a sound bath is, what sound healing is, how it works. So if you've ever been curious about this topic or you've ever been interested in learning more, this is a great episode to start with. And we also get to dive into where she's heading next, all of the aligned collaborations and partnerships she has. And it's really been such a joy to get to connect with her and now reconnect with her. And she really has been a piece of my sound healing and now sound bath host role. So I'm excited to share this episode with everyone. Let me know what you think. Send me a message, email, whatever channel you use, and let's go ahead and dive in. Welcome to the podcast, Natalie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Livia. It's such a beautiful moment of like full circle to be a guest on your pod and the fact that we met through one of the virtual sound practitioner trainings and to see you continue to deepen your leadership in the space, not only in Guam, but also internationally. As we know, these audio frequencies can be listened to anywhere, but I love that you're bringing so much of this wisdom and your own personal life experience to Guam, to a place where it's not as commonly found as where I currently live in Los Angeles. So I'm so proud of you and I'm so honored to be reconnecting again in this way. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure to have you. And yeah, for those who don't know how we are connected, I joined Natalie's sound healer practitioner training a few years ago. I had ordered my sound bowls. I had all of them here, but I was feeling some resistance around getting started with creating sound baths. And I really wanted to learn. I really wanted to dive in and be the student, which again is a common theme in my life. And so I joined Natalie for a virtual training. If I remember, I was up like either in like the middle of the night or like early morning because of the time zone with LA. And I remember that feeling also very perfect, right? Like having kind of a night vibe for our sound healing training here in Guam. So I'm excited for her to share a little bit about her journey, about sound healing, about all of the things sound related. So we would love to just to kick it off with a quick intro. If you could just share a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Yes, thank you, thank you, and I do remember it was, like, middle of the night for you. You are a trooper. So, my name is Natalie Valle. I am a Latina first-generation Salvadorian, currently living in Los Angeles, and I'm a multidisciplinary practitioner. I work with a lot of different modalities, primarily sound healing, Reiki, meditation, yoga, tapping, and meditation to really take people through a journey to self-discovery, to processing whatever it is that needs to be processed in the emotional, energetic body, and then integrate it so that they can continue on with their lives and take away these tools that they can implement themselves. My real aspiration is to just help people discover their own inner healers through sharing tools that have helped me along the way. And as you mentioned, Livia, I also have a sound practitioner training, so, working with people who feel called to also hold space, share the modality of sound with an intention of healing, of facilitating those spaces for folks. And yeah, I am super grateful to be here. It's been a whirlwind of 6 years since I've stepped onto the path of being a practitioner. Prior to that, my journey started with yoga and meditation. I discovered yoga during a university elective, and it just changed the trajectory of my life. And then 6 years ago, I formally stepped into taking certifications and courses to get some experience, get some accreditation. And it's such a gift to be able to do this um, for a living, to get to share what I love and what I'm passionate about, and see people, have light bulb moments and create the change within their own lives, right? We Nobody can change our lives for us. We can only change our lives, but offering inspiration and tools is really where I feel the most fulfilled in this work.
And I know that you mentioned it was 6 years ago that you stepped onto the mat, and also actually, I wanted to take it back before we dive into your story a bit. For those people who might be listening that are like, "What is sound healing? What are these women talking about?" Could you give us just, like, a little intro of, what it is and why it's important?
Yeah, for sure. So, sound baths, sound healing, sound meditation, sound therapy, sound journeys, soundscape, you can call it a myriad of different things. But in their simplest form, it's simply a form of meditation where we utilize sound and frequency to begin to create change physiologically through the brainwave activity, through relaxing the physical body. We can create change emotionally by activating these different parts of ourselves through sound, through frequency. And we can create change energetically. We understand that everything is vibration. And so when we work with specifically curated vibrations or sound frequencies, we can begin to impact the energetic body. And so sound baths can be a full session with instruments such as singing bowls, gongs, tuning forks, didgeridoos, drumming. I love that we think of sound baths as a new age concept, but ancient medicine folks and shamans would use drumming to induce altered states of consciousness. And it's really beautiful what can happen when somebody who says, "I don't know how to meditate, my mind can't sit still," and they get themselves into a sound bath and experience that moment of stillness, because sound has such an innate ability to take us into a primordial state. It's really wonderful to see that sound baths are so accessible for people, whether they're seasoned meditators, have their own mindfulness and spiritual practices, or they're brand new, right? And so, yeah, sound baths are, in short, a form of meditation, but they can really be defined as using instruments, also the voice. I think so often we forget that we all have the most powerful instrument known to mankind. It's the voice, because it's the only instrument that contains consciousness. And so, even if while you're meditating, you start to hum, you can begin to attune your own body with this use of your own frequency and sound. And so, sound baths are a healing modality, really beautiful alternative therapy to couple with Western medicine for healing, for recovery. It's an opportunity to have moments of self reflection, of introspection, And we can also begin to engage the magical pineal gland through sound baths and have mystical experiences and see visuals, see colors. And then other times, maybe we just get really sleepy and we fall asleep. And so, no right or wrong way to receive a sound bath. It's really what you're meant to receive in that moment, which I think is the best part of them, that they're so left open to interpretation.
Yeah, I absolutely see that with people who come through my sound baths as well. Of like, sometimes it's just deep relaxation into sleep. Other times, someone comes up to me after, they're like, "I was seeing this color a lot," or "I was going into a deep visualization." So, super
Yeah.
powerful and also accessible, like you mentioned. So, we'll definitely be diving more into sound in this episode too. But I wanted to get back to your story a little bit about pre 6 years, pre getting into this type of work. You mentioned yoga was one of the influences. It was also a big piece of my journey as well. It's sort of the gateway into more. But I would love to hear a little bit about before you found all of this wellness and healing work, what was your life like?
Yeah, I I love how big that question is. What was your life like? Because I think we take on so many stories of our story and what defines us. Um, and so, to give you a long story, relatively short, I mentioned I'm first generation Salvadoreña. And so, when I was 12, we moved to the United States from El Salvador, which is a beautiful, tiny little country in Central America. And I moved to the States, did not know English. Spanish was my first language, and had to very quickly adapt and assimilate. Grew up in a Christian household, so I've always been really connected to prayer, to ritual. Went to Catholic school growing up, so again, prayer ritual has always been a common thread in my life, although in my teenage years, as most people do who grew up in the church, rejected it and then have later, since come to understand the wisdom that in lies deeper than what the traditions believe. And so when I was in university, I had this pretty strong party girl identification persona. That was part of it. I've always been very social, and then part of it was also masking parts of myself that were deeply broken, deeply sad, that I've done a lot of work since. And so I feel really comfortable talking about these things. But, back then I was really suffering from substance abuse problems, eating disorders, and just making choices that were not in alignment with my soul's authentic vibration, which was leading me down a path of unhappiness, of suffering. And by the grace of the guidance of spirit, I found a yoga class that began to rewire the inner conversation in my brain, that introduced me to meditation and mindfulness. And when I graduated university, I had this almost like moment of awakening where I decided I'm going to move to a different state. I'm going to completely change my life because what I'm doing here is so out of alignment with my vibration that I didn't have language for it then, but my soul knew. And one morning I woke up and I literally was like, okay, I need to move to a different city. I need to start from a blank slate, and I need to stay somewhere warm because I don't like the cold. And so it was between Miami and Los Angeles. And I was living in Florida at the time. So I was like, you know what? Let me try something new. Had never been to LA, had $2,000 to my name, had no idea what I was going to do with my life. But I got a ticket, one-way ticket, and moved to Los Angeles. And that whole journey was divinely guided, of me putting one foot in front of the other and taking the next right action. I would meet people that eventually led me to different jobs, or I would meet other people, eventually met my tribe, my community here at one of those jobs, met my husband at one of those jobs. And I was kind of on this trajectory of the sales and partnership corporate side of my career. I studied international business with a minor in Chinese. And so I had this like vision of success that was like, I'm going to be CEO of a SaaS startup company one day. And, that's where I'm headed. And as your Dharma usually does, parts of me were starting to come on live with finding yoga and being in Los Angeles, having such an abundance of wellness offerings that I could attend, from breath work to sound baths. So I was discovering different modalities for myself that were really starting to change the way that I perceive the world, the way that I perceive myself. And it wasn't so much change as much as it was just peeling off the layers of inauthenticity that were not serving me. And during one of those jobs, I met a mentor of mine. She was a yoga teacher that would get hired to come in and teach a couple times a week. And she was the person who was the messenger for the guidance of spirit to guide me to sound. Because one day she approached me and she said, "Hey, I'm doing a sound practitioner training over the summer, and I felt called to invite you to take it with me." And I was like, "That's so random. I have no interest in being a sound practitioner, but I'll think about it." It's coming from someone I really respect, so I'll sleep on it. I kid you not, Livia, I woke up the next day and I was like, I don't know why, but I think I have to do this. Like, I think I have to spend this steep investment. At the time, it was steep. Most trainings are not cheap, right? Yoga teacher training, sound practitioner trainings. And I was like, I don't know why, but I'm just like, take my money. I'm gonna figure out what this has in store for me. Day one of that sound practitioner training, I bawled, and there was just this spark that was lit up inside of me, and it's only continued to burn brighter ever since. And sound was the first modality that people ask me, like, how did you find sound? And truly, sound found me. It was one of those things where somebody came up to me and they were like, "Hey, spirit is guiding me to tell you to do this." And it was up to me to be like, "Yes, okay, I'll do it." And I haven't really looked back since. It's been kind of this like pivotal moment of my life that came out of nowhere, truly out of nowhere at the time, I thought. But now looking back, it always makes sense, right?
Yeah, it sounds like your intuition was super strong and activated back then as well, like waking up and being like, I need to move to a different city. I need to go here. I need to do this training. Right. And it sounds like there's also some similarities in our path too, which I didn't realize as well, like growing up in a, Catholic school or having sales in like your background as well. That
Wow.
journey of also just a one-way ticket, like moving and just having that courage to go and figure it out. So it's beautiful to hear all of those different things that led you to sound. So one of the things I
Yeah.
remember from our training together too is I went in with kind of a blank slate. Like I didn't know much about sound healing. I knew that I enjoyed it being on the other side of being an attendee, like soaking in the meditation experience. But I was really so blown away by even just learning about like the history of sound. And I remember you showed us a video showing how sound impacts, I think it was like sand, or it was showing like how sound impacts like matter. So when you were in your sound training and you had that sort of aha moment of like, I need to, like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I guess what about what you learned was so interesting that you kept going back to learn more and more related to sound?
Mm. That is such a beautiful question. And I'll tell you, it's not so much about what I learned as much as it was about what I felt. And I remember just this feeling of something so ancient being woken up inside of me. I remember the feeling of sitting with the bowls and playing them and going into this trance like state that I'd never experienced before. And so for me, it was more so about my experience of working with the instruments, my experience of working with the gong, more so than what I learned. And then what I learned was just, it compounded that much more what I was, the magnetism that I was already feeling towards the modality. But it was something that I can't quite describe. It was more so a feeling of familiarity, a feeling of curiosity, a feeling of I hate to say, not I hate to say it, but like I wish I had a better word, but it was this feeling of magic. I felt like I tapped into some sort of magic, this sort of mysticism, this energy that I couldn't describe, but I could feel and I could sense. And it woke up a part of me that I think it wakes up for a lot of people, of this sentiment of becoming aware of the unseen, becoming aware of the subtleties that, not just our physical body, but our subtle body, our energetic body. And then once I learned, for me, you asked me like what did I learn that really helped seal the deal for me? For me, it was a lot about the neuroscience. I loved learning about the way that frequencies impact brainwave activity. Somebody that I really admire. He's not a sound practitioner, but the way that he talks about brainwave activity, trance-like states, is Dr. Joe Dispenza. And the
Yes.
way in which sound impacts the body, the brain waves, our subconscious, our pineal gland, it's really special. And there's still so little that we know about sound, but what we know for sure is that there is so much power in being able to harness our mind, our brain waves, and sound has the ability to take us to that place. And I think that for me is it's cool. It's almost like biohacking in a way.
Yeah, I remember in my yoga teacher training, there was a big kind of focus on neuroscience in it as well. And I remember that showing us a few videos with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and then I really went into the the rabbit hole of videos with him. And yeah, I'm definitely a
Totally.
super powerful person. So I remember during our sound healing training, I had my bowls. I had those for a while, but I remember there was you really showed us a wide range of things. So I remember hearing the Koshi chimes for the first time, and I was like, "Whoa, I need to get those." Something about that
Yes.
sound really, really resonated with me, and since then, I have the gong, I have all different types of instruments here that you've helped me, pick out as well, and so for you, when you started your training and started to practice this, like, were there certain instruments that you felt more connected to that you were like, "Yes, I need to incorporate this," as you built sort of your set?
Yeah. So it's so funny because the first set of instruments that I got were all seven bowls in the C major scale. So the C, D, E, F, G, A, B crystal bowls. I got classic frosted bowls. As much as I loved the alchemy bowls from the get go, I just knew that I needed to start with something more resilient, more durable, because, they're crystal, they're fragile. But the next instrument that I got was the gong. And the gong and I have had such an interesting relationship. I had always been intimidated by it. And for the longest time, I was like, maybe I'm just not going to play the gong. I just don't feel comfortable with it. And I remember thinking, like, feeling this strong draw to the moon gong, and this strong draw to the Venus gong. Those were like the two gongs that, even though I was still intimidated by the gong, I felt really drawn to them. And I remember when I got my Venus gong and I put it up in my home, I felt the energy in my space change. And it was the most wild thing. And yeah, it's funny because even though I felt really hesitant towards the gong was one of the instruments that I felt like I needed the most. And then once the gong came into my life, the energy in my life shifted. And so these instruments do have the ability to change so much energy in your space, in your home, within your community, your family. I'm sure you experienced that too as you started accumulating your instruments.
Yeah, I have the moon gong, as well, and yeah, it's such a powerful sound. I don't know how to describe it, but it also has been a semi-intimidating instrument for me as well, just of, like, spending time with it over time. It's interesting because when I first got my bowls, pre even learning about them with you, I kind of had almost an imposter syndrome around it where I was like, "Oh, I can't play it. I have to find someone else to do these at my events." So actually for the first couple events that I had with sound bowls, I had someone else do it. And then I slowly started to realize like I need to spend time with the bowl. I need to have a relationship with them, right? I have to have that connection with them too. And then I started to get more confidence using them. And it's still every time I play them, I feel like there's a connection to it. And even with the other
Mhm.
instruments, it's like slowly building them into the whole experience. So I know you said you were
Yeah.
doing sales before, and then found sound, and then you went kind of deeper and deeper. But when did you sort of transition to this being your main thing, right? I'm really saying, okay, I'm going to leave
Mm.
my comfort, I'm going to leave my job, and I'm going to really become this, healing practitioner.
Yeah, it was a slow burn. It was a slow burn. So, day one, post graduating my sound practitioner training, this was 2018. I knew that I wanted to share this practice, but I never thought it was going to be something that I would just do full time. I always, at the time, I had thought that it was just going to be something that I shared with friends, with family. And I carried on with my roles at these different corporate companies. I worked at ClassPass for some time, which was my dream job. It was my absolute dream job. I got to, you know, flex the skills that I knew, partnership, sales, customer service. I got to work in the industry that I love, health and wellness. I got to launch the app in Madrid. So I got to go to Madrid, live there for a few months. I got to launch the app in Amsterdam. And really, it was my dream job. I studied international business, I was traveling for work. And yet, there was still part of me that was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And it was 2019 when I started to feel this shift where I thought, you know what? I've been sharing my practice now for a year and a half, and things kind of snowballed quite quickly. I was probably one of the I was probably the first or second wave of sound practitioners in Los Angeles, maybe the second wave. And so there wasn't a lot of us. And so I was getting a lot of opportunity because there wasn't a lot of us. People were discovering more and more about sound baths. It was becoming quite popular. And so it snowballed quite quickly. And the timing truly was just so divine. And so 2019, I was doing a lot of events, doing a lot of brand partnerships, a lot of activations. And I was starting to feel this, like, sort of my path had been going, like, had been parallel for some time. And then I started to feel a split of, like, I had two different paths that I was feeling called to. One was to stay on the career trajectory that I'd been on. And this other path was something completely unknown and not, charted territory, total entrepreneurial lifestyle. But also being fulfilled, being in Dharma, being on purpose. And then 2020 happened, which affected everybody, affected the way in which we operated within our jobs, within offices. It affected the way that people traveled. And that's really when things started to pivot for me. I started offering a lot of sound baths online. I think I was doing like a sound bath a day on either Instagram Live or Zoom. And I really started to see how much impact this work had because people were desperate for a sense of calm, desperate for a sense of safety, desperate for a sense of health and well being. And I really started to feel the pull be even stronger. And so when 2021 came around, I just got to this place where I thought, if not now, then when? If I don't take the leap, and follow my soul's calling, follow my heart's calling, when am I ever going to be able to do this? And so I still slowly transitioned out. I didn't have this big sort of jump off with no parachute, jump off the ledge with no parachute moment. It was more so this moment of like, I was building my parachute as I was running towards the edge. So when I jumped, kind of had my parachute half built. And what I mean by that is I really sat down, and it's funny because I was looking at some documents earlier this week. I was looking for an old document, and I came across a document titled Natalie's it was like Natalie's plan to go full time into what she loves. And I had listed out all the things that I needed to, check off before I left a salary. And I think that it was the best gift I could have given myself. It incorporated, having a set of clients, having a base of income that was already coming in, having a certain amount in my savings account so that I had a runway in case I didn't make any revenue my first however many months. And it's very tactical, it's very logical, it's very strategic. But if you're somebody who operates from a place of, you know, having some sort of strategy and plan, then I think that's the best possible way people can transition from doing one thing to another is to give themselves a safety net. Um, because it can be scary and it's scary regardless. But if it's done with intention and strategy, I think it can be less scary and less risky. And so, yeah, it was 2022, really, like 2 years ago when I went full time. Now, granted, I had already been building my practice and my business for 4 years, and so a lot of people, think overnight successes happen, but the reality is you just don't see all the work that's done behind the scenes. You don't see that people are working 40 hours a week from a 9 to 5 and then working 10 extra hours a week on what they actually love, what they actually want to be doing full time. And so there's no right or wrong formula, but that formula worked for me. And yeah, I'm really grateful that that's how it happened. So it was a slow burn. It was a slow burn for sure. And it was something that I didn't even realize was going to happen when I started my journey, delving into all of these practices. Um, yeah.
It's so important to share too, because a lot of people do see typically just, I did it and here's what how it is after, but they typically don't see that middle part of like before you leave or before you decide to go full
Yeah. It's
time, there
not
is a lot of
glamorous.
planning. I also did something similar too, right? I needed to know that if I left my job before and went full time, it's what I'm doing. Like my nervous system had to be comfortable with that as well, right? Knowing what you
Yeah.
need to feel comfortable when you're leaving a lot of things that our comfort in just like your daily life, financial, whatever that might be. So thank you for sharing that because I do feel like it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's messy. It's messy in between for sure. So you decided to, you were going and doing sound baths and people were hiring you and you had all these different events. I love to also hear that you were kind of part of the first or second wave of sound healers in LA. I'm sure now there's so many that are out in that space as well. But when you
Yeah.
decided I want to do these, events, but I also want to share this as a teacher and do I know that you do in-person
Mhm.
trainings as well as virtual. So what was
Yeah.
that step like to then decide I'm going to create this program and teach people how to do this?
I had this conversation with somebody a couple days ago of when did you decide that you were ready to teach? And there is that old saying of when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I also think it works the other way around. When the teacher is ready, the student appears. And like for me, I remember I had like over a couple of months, so many people ask me, do you ever teach people how to do this? Do you ever run your own programs? I want to learn. Can you teach me how to lead sound baths and teach me the history, teach me the science? And so it was this thing that people started asking me for that I felt compelled to share. And so I probably spent a good 6 months doing so much research, reading so many books, in addition to, by then I had already done, of course, my sound practitioner training. I had done a 200-hour yoga teacher training. I had done an EFT tapping, emotional freedom technique training with neurolinguistic programming. I had done a Reiki practitioner attunement. So I already had all of these modalities under my belt that I felt I can put something together that incorporates all of these things because in the beginning, I said I'm multidisciplinary, and I feel like most of us are, right? Most of us have all of these different tools that we learn and accumulate over our own journeys that we weave into how we hold space, how we share with people. And so, yeah, it was a combination of preparing myself, doing a lot of research. Luckily, I love studying, I love reading. I have so many books in my home that are like dog-eared with post-it notes highlighted because I love diving into research-based yeah, just different studies, different schools of thought. And so it was one of those things where I had people coming to me and I just was sort of compelled to deliver what they were asking.
I'm so glad you decided to do that because I remember being, here on Guam with these bowls, being like, I really want to learn from someone. I had followed your journey a little bit. And when I saw you were doing that, I thought, this is perfect, especially if you're not able to be live with you in LA. How can you still dive in? And I love how you have such a different background, different modalities. And that has been really an amazing thing to witness as well.
Thank you for trusting me. Being so far away, I'm always amazed when people say yes. And it's always such a privilege to be the temporary teacher and guide. I end up learning just as much from my students and graduates than they do from me, if not more. And so thank you for taking that leap with me and trusting me, because that was what, maybe 2 years ago?
Yeah,
Yeah.
2 years ago, I believe.
Yeah. And it's beautiful because you may have been my first or second virtual cohort. And so since I've actually been continuously learning. I've delved more into music theory, into the use of toning and vocal healing. And so I'm putting together a much more comprehensive sound practitioner training that will be offered virtually. And so it's going to be pre recorded. I'm hiring a whole video camera crew to put this together, editing it. And so first, I'll give you access to it. So if there are modules in there that you didn't get to have during our training, you can totally check them out. And then also it's just like thank you for being a part of this journey with me, because yes, even though like I'm in the teacher and guide role, like I'm always and will be a student, right?
Also, same for me as well. I feel like always being the student, I'm always learning, and I feel like that is part of being on the teacher side as well, is like constantly filling your own cup, and then it leads to something else, and then you meet a new person and there's a new training. So I feel like I'm always going to be in that mindset of like wanting to dive deeper. So I wanted to ask, for people that sometimes I get questions from people who are maybe don't come to yoga or don't come to meditation. They're like, what do you guys do in the sound bath? Right? What is happening? Can I come? Is it for someone specific? Like, what can I expect? And I know every practitioner creates their own sound experience, but what would you say to people that are like, I'm not quite sure what to expect? Should I come to a sound bath? I'm sure you get this all the time.
Yes. There's no water involved. You would be surprised how many people ask me if there's water involved in a sound bath.
No bathing.
Um, no bathing. No, in all seriousness, I what I love about sound baths is that no experience is necessary. You are welcome to receive a sound bath laying down, sitting up, eyes open, eyes closed. Traditionally, most practitioners invite people to lay down with their eyes closed to be fully in a resting, receiving position. But some people feel safer with their eyes open. Some people physically feel more comfortable sitting up than laying on a hard surface, such as a floor or a yoga mat. And so no experience is necessary. There's no right or wrong way to receive a sound bath, right? You might be somebody who has thoughts the entire time and has emotion come up, and maybe they're coming up so that you can process them in real time. Maybe you're somebody who is desperately tired and needs to sleep. Sleeping is the most powerful form of healing that we can experience, truly, to let the body just sleep. And so if you do fall asleep, that's okay too. And if you're somebody who sees colors or has really mystical experiences, I always recommend, regardless of what your experience is, to journal afterwards, because it's one thing to have an experience, it's another thing to integrate it and then weave that into your day to day of what you learn, what you take away. And so, yeah, if you're listening and you've never been to a sound bath, go to one. You can also do them online if testing one out in the comfort of your own home virtually feels safer, just to kind of figure out what's going on. And then there is a component of guided meditation. Some people like to guide the whole time, some people like to let the sound do their thing. I kind of straddle in between. I like to guide in the beginning, guide at the end, and kind of let the middle be just the soundscape, the sound journey. But yeah, no experience is necessary, and there's no right or wrong way to receive a sound bath. And you don't have to do anything. You are quite literally invited to just lay there and do nothing. Very few moments in life where that's what you're encouraged to do.
Yeah, just to receive. I love it when during a sound bath how I do encourage people to change their position, right? If they want to go be laying down and then they want to be seated and then they want to lay on their side, right? I think a lot of people think I have to be still the whole time, but really allowing the body and to just receive in whatever way that's comfortable. So
Yeah.
I would love to attend one of your sound baths in person. I've done them online, but I hope to next time I'm in LA, I'll definitely have to experience one in person. So sometimes people might think, okay, sound, you're relaxed, you're sleeping, right? But there's actually some science behind this, like how the nervous system works with sound, how the brain waves work with sound. So we'd love for you to share a little bit about kind of that science part behind sound baths.
Yeah, so we'll touch on brainwave activity because I think that that one's the most profound to think about. So, in our waking days, our brainwaves operate at a beta brainwave frequency, which is a pretty normal, kind of rapid brainwave frequency. Just the action of closing our eyes and focusing on our breath can actually slow down our brainwaves into an alpha brainwave frequency that's a little bit slower of a frequency. And the magic that happens during a sound bath is when we are able to drop into such a deep alpha state that the brain waves slow down to a point where they drop into theta. Theta is like the veil between the conscious and the subconscious mind. And when we drop into theta, that's when we directly go into the subconscious state. So we're no longer in the monkey mind. We're no longer thinking about I have to email this person back. What am I going to do for dinner? I have to go grocery shopping. I forgot to take the dog out before I came to this thing. It's like the constant thoughts. And we're able to drop into a state of full presence, full awareness. And when we talk about the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system is ruled directly by the subconscious mind. Think about it. It's all the automatic functions that happen that sustain life without you needing to think about them. So they run on the subconscious programming, such as the breath, digestion, blood pressure, heart rate, right? The things that keep us alive that we don't have to think about, but our body naturally does them. So when we drop into the subconscious mind, we're able to directly tap into the nervous system to begin to bring it back into homeostasis. Maybe you are somebody who experiences chronic fight or flight, which is a lot of the population, unfortunately. Because of the amount of stimuli that we get in our day to day, our nervous system never really has the opportunity to come back into homeostasis. And that's when chronic stress can lead to chronic disease. And so, having that pause in your day where you give the nervous system the opportunity to bring itself back to center, to bring itself back to homeostasis, can stop the release of cortisol, the release of the stress hormone. It can begin to let the body repair and heal itself, right? We have these incredible pharmacies in our bodies. It knows what chemicals to produce to counteract whatever imbalance might be going on. The problem is that the body doesn't have the space to do so because it's so focused on fight, flight, surviving, right? And so if you give the body the space to do that, so much physiological healing can happen. From a mental standpoint, the mind is constantly racing. If you give the mind a chance to almost like, if you think of shaking a snow globe and you're shaking the snow globe all day and then you just let it be still, all of that begins to settle. You have access to more creativity. You have access to expanded awareness. You can reduce stress. You can reduce anxiety. You can actually improve memory, improve sleep. So, yeah, so many benefits, but I think those are some of the ones that I like to highlight because they're so tangible and they can be actually be felt. I've had so many people enter a sound bath feeling stressed, feeling anxious. They just fought LA traffic to get to the studio and then they walk away telling me, I haven't felt this degree of peace, this degree of calm in such a long time. And it's beautiful because we can access that truly anytime we slow down to meditate, and sound baths just hold that space so that it becomes easier to drop into that state.
Yeah, I witness the people that I get come through sound baths. I mean, this it speaks for itself when you see people leave and just the energy that shifts during it, and especially if you have people that are coming in like maybe they're running late or come in a couple of minutes after, and you could just sense like the fast pace that people are arriving in, and then how much slower they leave. I typically try to create have a sound bath within my retreats that I host, and I'll do it at night, like before they head off into bed. And I'm like,
Yeah,
have a great sleep with this, right? Like really starting to slow it down before bed is yeah, I've had some of the best sleeps after sound baths as well.
me too.
So one of the things I've, witnessed from you since got connected into your world is it seems like you were a pretty powerful manifester. You have retreats going on in Costa Rica, you are a Nike trainer, you've had all these aligned partnerships, and it's just been so inspiring to watch all of these different things come from your journey of sound. So, would love to know any thing that you've really manifested lately that's been, something that you've wanted to do for a long time or has just felt really aligned for you at this point?
Mm. I think thank you for that reflection. Thank you. It's a lot of work and energy and trust has happened behind the scenes. And all that to say, when it comes to manifesting, it's so important to have a vision, to hold that vision, and then to let go and to let the universe surprise you. And so I remember a few years back, I wrote, I aspire to be a leader in the wellness space, to be considered, you know, um, a leader in the space. And I didn't know what that meant, like what that would look like tangibly. I didn't necessarily have an attachment to what it needed to be. And since then, like you said, I've signed with Nike as a Nike Well Collective Mindfulness Coach. I recently was published on Conscious City Guides, top people who are, leading the evolution of the wellness space. And truly, I say that with so much gratitude because it's such a privilege. It's such an honor to be in these spaces as a Latina, as a first generation person of color, woman of color, um, to be held in this regard, and to also work with people in such intimate ways, to be trusted with people's journeys and experiences. And so, to answer your question, I would say those are two big things. Those are two big manifestations that I'm just like every day. I just like humbly pray and say so much gratitude for my ancestors, for my guides, for spirit, God, the universe, whatever terminology it takes on for you. For me, is super interchangeable. And yeah, and a lot of it is just like having a vision, trusting, doing the next right thing, right? Maybe the next right thing is like waking up and doing your meditation practice. That's the next right thing. And then trusting and letting go and then letting the universe surprise you. And that's usually how a lot of manifestations get missed. I think we're constantly manifesting. We're such creators, and especially when we're conscious creators, I think we can get caught up in the idea of what something needs to look like. That when something even better or packaged differently comes along, we totally miss it because we're still looking out for, this manifestation that looks this way. But in reality, something way better was in store for us, and we miss it because we're so focused on the one thing.
Yeah, trusting the process has been almost like a life motto for me, and especially as I've gotten into this work, like really building that self-trust, that self-worth, that practice of letting it go has definitely been a huge part of my journey as well. So I know that you have a number of things that you're working on right now. Like I love listening to your podcast. I
Thank
also
you.
know that you've worked with bringing cacao into your ceremonies as well. You have retreats on the horizon. So what comes next for you now that you are a leader in your space and you're living that manifestation?
Thank you. I don't take that role lightly. I'm always enrolled in courses, always learning, always growing. Um, yeah, for me this year, I think it's really coming down to finding my zone of genius, and mastery, I think, is really what's calling to me. I've for so long been so proud of my ability to multitask, my ability to be a jack of all trades. And I feel that for me, the calling of mastery is really beckoning. Mastery within, and I mastery I think is a moving target. I think it's a journey, not a destination. And so I don't anticipate I'll ever be the master of anything. But it's a journey, the journey towards mastery, with sound, with cacao, and then, yeah, just focusing on that.
Beautiful. And so I know that I know people who listen are going to be like, where can I work with her? Where can I find her? I know you're on social media, but where can people find you? How can they connect with you for more?
Yeah, thank you. So, as I mentioned, I'm in the midst of putting together a virtual sound practitioner training that's going to be um, more user friendly, more on demand, a lot more accessible as well. And so you can keep an eye out for that on my website, loveandalchemy.com. Of course, on all the socials at loveandalchemy underscore. You can send me a DM, send me an email, would love to connect. And then the podcast, Practical Alchemy, similar conversations. And yeah, super honored to have been on yours. I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited for you. I'm just in awe of witnessing how you are weaving and stepping in as a leader in Guam in the wellness space, internationally in the wellness space. I'm just amazed by you.
Oh, thank you so much. So I have every conversation is wrapped up with the same question. So I would love to hear what is lighting you up these days.
Mm. What is lighting me up these days? My time in nature with my dog. I love anytime I feel I'm out of sync, out of alignment, I'm in a slump. I just know that I need to get outside and bring my dog with me.
Mm. Beautiful how pets can do that. I would say a similar thing with my pups as well.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for making the time, for being a continued teacher for me. I know everyone listening is going to be so inspired by your journey. And for those people who have never attended a sound bath, this is your sign, wherever that might be, online, in person. So thanks so much for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please rate and review, and don't forget to subscribe. Learn more at enowellnesscollective.com and connect with us on Instagram at Eno Wellness Collective.